Hello, world. It's Carole from Viva Vacation, and today's podcast will be on my husband and I's most recent Alaskan cruise. Hi, Bernie.
Hello.
So there's many cruise options for Alaska, options in terms of cruise lines, numbers of days, destinations, and essentially there's two ways to see the Alaskan coast. You can do a return trip from Seattle or Vancouver. So you're going to depart and come back from a little further south. Or you could do, for example, a one-way from Anchorage to Vancouver or Seattle. The one-way obviously is going to permit you to see more stops or destinations. Probably if you're starting more north, you'll get to see a little bit more variety in terms of landscape and wildlife. And you will also see the northern lights if you're departing more south or more north, I should say. So, of course, if you're leaving from Anchorage, or if you're doing a cruise tour before, you're going to need a bit more time, and it's probably going to cost you a little bit more. So we, for this cruise, chose to do a round trip cruise from Seattle, Washington, for 7 days. A big part of our decision was that we like to see new cities, and we had never been to Seattle, so that was a big part of our decision. And we were limited, or I should say I was limited because Bernie is retired now, but I was limited in terms of vacation. So we opted for a 7 days. So because we visited Seattle before our cruise, we are going to talk a little bit about Seattle. So I like to give kind of fun facts about some of our destinations. So Seattle has a population of only 750,000 people. However, the metro area around Seattle has 4.1 million. It's a very rainy city, similar to other cities along that coast, and it rains about 147 days per year. So that is more than half of the year. It is the birthplace of Starbucks for those coffee lovers. It is home to the famous Pike Place Market and the Space Needle. What I found interesting was that they are the home to three major sports teams: the Kraken, which is hockey, the Mariners, which is baseball, and the Seahawks, which is football. And all three of their stadiums are downtown. So that was kind of neat. Seattle has also the most houseboats located in this city from the whole world, so the most in the world. It's also the first American city to have had a female mayor, so progressive city. It is, I like to mention that is, in terms of TV shows, Grey's Anatomy and Frasier, to name a few, had their setting. It was in Seattle, and of course that famous movie Sleepless in Seattle, starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, was also set in that city. I do want to mention, in terms of landscape, Seattle has 6 huge mountains around the city, with the tallest being Mount Rainier at 14,410 feet. So enough for the facts. Bernie, what did you think of Seattle?
I actually quite liked Seattle. I thought it was a really nice city. It was really like nice iconic views. And also with the Sleepless in Seattle movie, Tom Hanks in there actually lived on a houseboat in that movie, if I remember it correctly. But I quite liked Seattle. Pike Place was like a highlight for me. It was so cool to just walk around those little markets and those little shops and have coffee and pastry, and it was really nice. We also got to go, as you recall, the Seattle Art Museum, which I'm always a fan of visiting art museums or galleries when we go to new cities. And that one was quite nice. It was small, but it had some really nice pieces. And of course, it had some really nice works of First Nation art there as well, as long as a regular collection as well. But a really city that's easy to get around in, kind of grid, at least in the downtown section. Really nice waterfront. We walked around there. A really bike-friendly city as well. But yeah, I quite like Seattle. Some iconic views of the Space Needle and Mount Rainier. Really nice American city.
Yeah, I agree. I liked Seattle as well. It felt like not as big of a city, a U.S. city,
Yeah.
as some of the other ones we've been to. I felt relatively safe. My favorite part was probably the waterfront. And I also liked the area. We did go to the area where the arena for the
Oh, yeah, that was
Kraken
nice. Yeah, that was nice.
is. Our son has a puck collection, and we wanted to get him a puck for his collection. So we went to that area, and it was like a beautiful park surrounding that, but a lot of other neat things. Like there was an IMAX theater, there was a kids museum, and I really love that area. So Seattle was actually a great pre-cruise destination for us. We were able to visit a day and a half, right? About
Yeah,
that time.
it was a quick visit.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely, if that's a destination you've been wanting to see, we would definitely recommend that. So let's move on to Alaska. So Alaska, interestingly enough, was bought by the Russian Empire in 1867 and became the 49th state of the United States in 1959. So not that long ago, if you will. It is nicknamed the last frontier. It is the only state that does not impose a sales tax or individual income tax, which I thought was remarkable, especially being Canadian and paying high taxes. The northern lights can be seen on average of 243 days per year in Fairbanks. And there are more than 3,000 rivers, 3 million lakes, and 29 volcanoes in Alaska. So that in itself is amazing. So
Also the
Bernie,
place with the most bald eagles as well.
oh yeah, that's right. That's right. So our first stop in Alaska was actually in Juneau, and Juneau is the capital of Alaska. Like a lot of people probably would think that Anchorage is, but it's actually Juneau. And Juneau is inaccessible by road. So you either have to fly there or go by ferry. And the only other city that's like that in the US is Honolulu. It is famous for the Mendenhall Glacier. Juneau's home to 280 species of birds. They have brown and black bears, 5 species of salmon, and humpback and orca whales, which we were fortunate enough to see. It's one of the largest cities, and it is the largest capital in terms of open space. And on June 21st, every year, there are 18 hours and 18 minutes of daylight. So for this stop on our cruise, we opted to do a hike. Bernie, talk to us about the hike.
Yeah, that was kind of a nice little hike. There was 2 guides, and we walked through this kind of beautiful mossy forest. And the guides were really quite knowledgeable about the forest and the history of the geographical history, geological history as well about that forest. And that ultimately led to a stop in front of the Mendenhall Glacier where we could see it off in the distance across a lake. And it was beautiful to see that. And they talked quite a bit about how it's been shrinking and how it's just decreasing in size, and there are floods there every year. So really quite interesting, but a beautiful hike in the forest. And there's bear warning signs everywhere, and the guides were both equipped with bear spray. And one of the guides had just saw one, I think the week before or a couple of days before, and everything went well. They didn't need to use bear spray or not, but it's still a really nice trail as well. So that was a great hike. And then another section of the hike, we walked through another sort of different part of that trail, and we saw the little streams where the salmon come back to spawn. And we saw it was at the end of their cycle, so there was a lot of like salmons either dead or dying. So it was quite an interesting smell in the area as well, and that also attracts bears. And the last part of that hike was going up to Nugget Falls, which was an amazing kind of long waterfall from one of the mountains. Glacier water coming down, just a powerful waterfall right there, and you could go right close to it. We were right up against it. It was just beautiful and just awe-inspiring. I mean, I think I took a million photos, but doesn't really do it justice compared to being there in person. So really a nice place. And also, we went to the Red Dog Saloon. I've got the little hat on today for the Red Dog Saloon. That was another highlight. That was really fun. Like, oh yeah, you get the mug too. Cool. Yeah, Red Dog Saloon has been there since 1933, and it originated as a place where miners could go drink and eat food after their day of working in the mines. And now in the peak season, it's mostly a tourist place. But in the off season, people who live in Juneau go there as well. And it's got like a live music, and this guy was singing old country songs, an old timey guy who was like a local resident. And right next to the of course the Red Dog Saloon, there's a gift shop, of course, for the tourists. But it's a really cool place and a really nice atmosphere, and people are singing along, and nice place. So Juneau was a good stop for me. I really enjoyed Juneau.
Yeah, I did too. We typically do bike tours, but we did a hike this time, and I really enjoyed being in the woods and seeing all that beautiful landscape. I personally would not be comfortable going there on my own, but because we were a group of 10 with very experienced guides, and they had the bear spray, I felt comfortable. And obviously, if you go by bike or foot, you get to see places that you wouldn't be able to if you were in a car or any other way. So yeah, that was a great day to see like amazing landscape. I will say that I did really enjoy the Red Dog Saloon. I'm a country music fan, so that was a plus. And just the whole atmosphere in there, you felt like you were like, I don't know, 100 years in the past. There was sawdust on the floor. The waitresses were dressed, I don't know what's the term for that type of dress, but it was like
old timey.
Yeah, very old timey, and they would, participate in the songs and all that. So I really enjoyed that. So good day. First, one of the things that the hike tour guides said about 10 times, you're so lucky today because it's sunny. Apparently they have very few days of sun. And it was sunny that day, the whole day. So I guess we were quite lucky for that. The day before, I guess they had a lot of rain, and so was very thankful for that. Now, our next stop was supposed to be Skagway. Skagway is known for the train ride into the mountains, and that day we were so looking forward to that train ride, and we were supposed to bike down after, like go up by train, come back down by bike. Now in the morning, we've cruised enough to know the signs, and the captain tried to dock the ship and was not able to. It was a bit too rough. So we were not able to go to Skagway, which was quite the disappointment. So to make up for that, we ended up going to Icy Straight Point. It's not it's a cruise stop, but it wasn't on our itinerary initially. It's a very small port, and it is where the city of Juneau is, and they only have 760 residents. It is the only privately owned cruise destination in Alaska. It was built in 1996 by the Tlingit tribe, and it's close to Glacier Bay National Park. It also features the world largest zip rider. Now, on this day, it was raining pretty hard, but I think we made the best of the day regardless. So what did you think of Icy Straight Point?
Yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment about not being able to go to Skagway, of course, but that's part of travel, right? Your plans change, so you got to adapt and make the best of it, and keep a positive attitude and still have fun. But yeah, it was a neat stop. Huna, small little place, but again, very touristy, nice, shops with local native arts and stuff to buy and stuff to shop around. But the nice little walk up to that section was beautiful. It was in that temperate rainforest with beautiful mossy forest and these big giant trees and great atmosphere, and just the air was so clean and fresh there. And I stepped off the trail a little bit and went into the forest. There was these little trails, and you just feel like this is like such a powerful, amazing place. So really nice. And yeah, I mean, it was at least we got to stop. Sometimes when when you can't dock, the boat just kind of sails around. So at least we got to stop. We had to go off the ship, walk around, and see some beautiful sights as well. And there was a little pub nearby. I stopped and had a beer and saw a couple of whales up in the inlet as well. So really nice place.
Yeah, it gave me the vibe of like a small fishing village. There was a nice beach and a lot of small boats and all that. So yeah, like you said, it was disappointing not to go to Skagway, but on the flip side, we were able to go to somewhere else and get off the ship and see something new. Now, a big highlight of the cruise is going through the fjords. For our cruise, it was the Tracy Arm Fjords. They are 30 miles long. They have like 1,000-foot waterfalls along them. There's floating glaciers. At the end of them, there's glaciers called the Twin Sawyer. And you'll find around the fjords a lot of wildlife like bear, wolves, seals, birds, and whales. We had gone to Hawaii on a cruise before and had seen the Nepali coast, and that was like breathtaking. But here, in the fjords, and you're going into them or you're passing through them, there's actually mountains on both sides. So you kind of feel like it's like you look around, like you do a 360 and the mountains are all around you. So it was such an amazing experience to see that. It was quite a nice day. There was a little mist on that day, but for most of the day it was sunny. I know I spent a lot of time outside, but you spent the whole day, Bernie. So what did you think of that?
Yeah, it was just so awe-inspiring. I mean, I love nature. I love being outside, and seeing those things is kind of, to me, it's kind of good for the soul. To see those powerful mountains and the waterfalls coming down, and then the glaciers off in the distance. And then, of course, when we got to the end of the fjord, or where the ship couldn't go any further because of the ice and the islands, the captain, of course, did a 360 spin a couple of times so that people could take great photos and just look around. It was really amazing. And also there were some excursions where people could go on smaller boats and go a bit closer. We opted not to do that because, I mean, you're still so close to the mountains, and the glaciers off in the distance is just beautiful. Yeah, I mean, again, I took a million photos, but it just doesn't do it justice compared to being there in person. One of the things I found interesting with this cruise, for the first time, there was a naturalist on board, and she was a person from the University of Hawaii, and she was quite knowledgeable about whales. So she talked about the whales, she talked about the glaciers, she talked about the fjords. She did a couple of lectures during the sea days. I was able to go to one, and she talked a little bit about the humpback whale population and how in the 70s they were almost extinct. They were down to like 400 humpback whales worldwide, and because of conservation efforts and education and a ban on whaling essentially for that type of whale, the population is now well over 20,000, and we saw quite a few during the whole Alaskan cruise. That was really nice to see. But it was neat that the cruise company Princess had a naturalist on board to talk about these things. So a little bit of education for us and the other people in the cruise and the tourists to be aware of the beautiful places that you go to, and a little bit of the nature that exists behind all those touristy places as well. So I think that's one of the things with Alaska. There's some touristy ideas, but it's also real nature. It's amazing. Yeah, and the fjords were just spectacular. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't describe
yeah.
it. Yeah.
It was really like an aha moment. Like you feel so small
Yeah,
when you're looking around all those mountains. So yeah, definitely one of the highlights of the trip.
absolutely. Yeah.
The next stop was Ketchikan. Ketchikan is more south. It is the canned salmon capital of the world. It's famous for its Creek Street, which is a street in a historic area. And Ketchikan only has 8,245 residents. Now, we were in Ketchikan for only the morning, so we were leaving shortly after noon. And on this day, we had decided to just walk around the town. I found Ketchikan, like it was really nice, but because we hadn't booked a tour, it did feel like touristy in terms of like a lot of little shops around the ship. It was very, very nice, but personally, I didn't get like the real Alaskan vibe just from being off the ship. We probably should have done a tour on that day.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And I guess it's because we had, a big excursion for Skagway that didn't quite work out, and we thought we'll balance it with just walking around Ketchikan. And like you said, beautiful, beautiful city, great old houses and houses on kind of stilts on that creek, and really nice shop, really high-end First Nations art there, like really beautiful, beautiful stuff there. Just so many amazing craft people there, and. Yeah, one of the things that you commented on was how close the ship was to the actual city. The dock is there, and like there's buildings right there. Something that we've very rarely seen, if ever, on cruise ships. But yeah, if you just want to walk around, we stop for a coffee and just it's a beautiful walk, and you can walk along the waterfront and sort of loop back through the town. But yeah, really nice place, and you still see the mountains around. But you're right, it's not like the real nature Alaska unless you go out of the city or out of the town,
Yeah.
I should call it.
Yeah, you mentioned that, but I mean, we've done a lot of cruises, and like you said, it was the first time, like when we got back on board, one of those days, we were sitting in the dining room, we had a window seat, and the street of the city was right there. I think 2 or 3 of the ports we were in, it was the same thing where the ship docks, like right in the little town or the city. So it was quite unique in that sense.
Oh yeah, and this one, I'll just quickly say this. I know we're getting close to the end, but kind of cautionary tale about managing your time. This is a stop where somebody missed a boat. They didn't make it back to the ship on time. So as the ship is sailing, I was on our back deck. We had a deck in the back, a cabin with a deck in the back, and I see this person running with a flag, and they're trying to flag down the cruise ship, of course. And the cruise ship is we're gone, but somebody missed the boat, and then maybe about half an hour later, this it looked like a U.S. maybe a Coast Guard boat or something like that, a Port Harbor boat, came speeding up, and they dropped off the passenger who had missed the boat. So lucky for that person that somebody was willing to come and catch up to the cruise ship and bring them back to the ship, because they would have been stuck in Ketchikan, which would not have been a good ending. So just a
No.
reminder to make sure we know when the ship is leaving and to plan accordingly.
Yes, and this trip in particular, from Atlantic Canada, like if you were in Seattle, it was a 4-hour difference. Then when you went into Alaska, it was a 5-hour difference. But depending on certain days, it changed. So you really needed to be aware of the ship time. And obviously this person was on the wrong ship time, because it was almost like she was an hour
An hour
behind.
late, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, always you can, like we were sitting in the dining room and you could hear an announcement. They're looking for a certain guest, and you know exactly what's happened. So you're looking outside to see, what kind of action you're going to see. So that was
Yeah.
interesting. Now, our last stop was actually in Canada, in beautiful Victoria. Now, Bernie, you had been to Victoria, and that area of the world while you were in the Navy back in the old days.
A long
But
time ago, yeah.
I had never been to Victoria. I had been to Vancouver. We opted to do a bike tour in the evening because we were only stopping there from 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. A very short stop. So Victoria is actually the capital of BC. It's located on Vancouver Island, and it is the bicycle capital of Canada. And after our bike tour, I can see why. It's home to over 70 urban parks. It's got the second highest number of restaurants per area in North America, only behind San Francisco. It's called the city of newlyweds or newly dead because almost 20% of the population is over 65. And it's also home to the famous Butchered Gardens that attracts over 1 million visitors per year. It is also home to the iconic Empress Hotel, which serves more than 500,000 cups of tea per year. The waters around Victoria had 5 different species of whales. It also has the oldest Chinatown in Canada and the second oldest in North America, again after San Fran. And the city was founded by the Hudson Bay Company. Now, doing a bike tour at night was something very different. We don't do a lot of those at night. It was beautiful, but at the same time, like I was telling you, we were riding and I couldn't see like if there was a huge rock or a stick, like I didn't want to fall. So you had to be extra cautious. But the views at night was just stunning. And of course, Victoria in that downtown area with the water and all that. I mean, I was just wowed. What did you think of our tour?
Yeah, Victoria is a beautiful city, and both during the daytime and at night. And you're right, the start of the bike tour was kind of like more of a bike path in the park, and we just had our little kind of bike lights, so not very much visibility. But once you got to the downtown area, a bit better in terms of lighting and visibility. But yeah, Victoria is a beautiful city. The Empress Hotel, of course, it's so beautiful at night. It was all kind of lit up, but during the day, it's a really old hotel as well. Really bike-friendly city, as you mentioned. Our tour guide was really interesting. He was like an older guy, and he'd been living there for a long time, kind of rough around the edges. But he talked a little bit about the history of Victoria, but he focused on an architect who had built both the Empress Hotel and their legislature or parliament building, which is the national capital, and like this whole sordid detail about affairs and murder with the architect. So that was kind of an interesting element to add to the bike tour. But really nice place, really fun, beautiful harbor city. Yeah, bike paths were amazing, going over bridges and little neighborhoods. And our guy talked about Chinatown as well and some of the history behind it and how several films were shot there. I can't remember which one he said, but one alley is really famous about some chase scene with Mel Gibson or something, I think, if I remember, jumping through like this tiny little alleyway in Victoria. Yeah, really beautiful city, and a nice stop as well. We were only there, I think, from 8 p.m. till 11:30 or midnight or so. So there wasn't a lot of options to do in terms of tours or activities other than walking around and going for a bite to eat or a drink. But the bike ride was a really nice way to end the tour in terms of stops. It was really, really nice. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I found it the perfect way to end our trip. Couldn't have asked for any better. So if Alaska is on your bucket list or just your regular travel list, if you're interested in looking at options and possibilities, please reach out to one of our Viva travel advisors. It would be our pleasure to help you plan that trip. And We are going to leave a few videos at the end of this podcast. We don't normally do that, but I did take a few beautiful videos. So if you'd like to see a little bit of what we experience, hang on till the very end so that you get to see that. Till next time, everyone. Viva vacation.